Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Jordan and this is the start of another Book of the Month reading vlog. This is a series I've been doing on my channel for a few months now in order to keep up with my Book of the Month owned TBR and recommend you guys Book of the Month books, let you know if they are worth the money. If you are not familiar with what Book of the Month is, I am not affiliated or sponsored by them in any way, but it's a monthly book subscription service where the Book of the Month team will curate 5 selections for Book of the Month members to pick from. You get to pick one of the selections to be your monthly Book of the Month for $14.99, and then after that you can also add on books for $9.99, and those can be any books from the entire Book of the Month backlist basically. So I really like to stay on top of my Book of the Month books, not only so that they don't, pile up and get out of control, but I also like to recommend the books to you guys, whether you are a Book of the Month member already and you're wondering whether you should pick these books up as add-ons, or you already own them and are wondering if you should pick them up next, or maybe you're not a Book of the Month member and you've just been eyeing these books separate from Book of the Month. I want to be able to recommend them to you and just stay up to date with the newest titles that Book of the Month is releasing. So to get right into the books that I'm going to be reading for this vlog, they all just so happen to be thrillers. That's not on purpose. I do try to keep my reading genres diversified, but there have been some exciting thriller releases lately, so I guess that's just what I've been gravitating towards. So the books that I'm going to be reading for this vlog, the first one is 56 Days by Catherine Ryan Howard. This is a thriller set during COVID-19. It is about 2 people that I believe meet during the pandemic or right before the pandemic and end up quarantining together. And then I think one of them ends up dead, or someone ends up dead, and it's a mystery surrounding that. I am very intrigued to read this book. I've seen actually some really good reviews for it. It definitely wasn't on my radar before this year, but once it came out, everyone kind of went crazy over it, so I'm really excited to see what all of that hype is about. And then I will be reading Survive the Night by Riley Sager. Riley Sager, on the other hand, is an author that I have been a fan of for a long time. He has written, I think, 5 thrillers at this point. I think this is his 5th, and I've given pretty much all of his other thrillers 4 or 5 stars, so this was a highly anticipated release for me this year. Unfortunately, I've seen some not so great reviews for this book, but I have seen some 5 stars, so I am hoping that I am in the minority and I end up really loving this book. But I believe it is about this girl who is going home from college for like a winter break or something, and she carpools with somebody that is supposedly this campus killer who is killing people on her college campus as a serial killer. So kind of a survival story, and I'm very interested to see how the road trip aspect plays into it. I'm excited for it. I hope I love it more than most people are. And then the most recent release, and the book that I'll be reading last, is Alice Feeney's Rock, Paper, Scissors. I'm gonna be honest, I know almost nothing about this book, but I've already seen some people receiving this in their most recent Book of the Month box and diving in and saying like the beginning is really good and really hooking and intriguing. And I haven't seen that many full reviews of the book, but I hope that trend continues. I hope people are loving it. Alice Feeney has written a few other thrillers. I believe I've only read one other of her books. I read the book Sometimes I Lie. I want to say I rated that book 3 or 4 stars, so I generally liked it, and I'm really excited to get started with this one. But like I said, I know almost nothing about it, and I would like to keep it that way, so I'm gonna go into this pretty blind and just let the story kind of come to me as it comes to me. So that's it. That's all I'm gonna be reading for this vlog. I hope that it is a pretty fast-paced video, because I think that these will all be pretty fast-paced books. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on one of them and just let you know when I have an update, and obviously my thoughts on all of the books as I complete them. Right, I am 72 pages into Rock, Paper, Scissors, and so far I'm enjoying it. I wanted to come on because I have some thoughts about the way the book is written. I noticed really early on that this book has a lot of like what I would call like one-liners, just like one sentence kind of quips or lines that are like kind of witty, but more like you read it and you're like, oh dang, like that's so true, that's so real, you know what I mean? This book is about a married couple who seems to have fallen out of love a little bit, and they're going on this like weekend remote retreat to try and rekindle whatever they have. And at the very beginning, they're kind of talking about how they got to that point in their marriage, and like I started writing things down that kind of, I don't know, just made me like think, or made me go like, oh, whoa, that was a sentence, you know? The first was that the wife is talking about how the husband likes to read a lot because he's a reader and then a screenwriter. I don't know if that's the actual correct term term for the job, but he writes scripts for book to film adaptations. And so she talks about how he brings books to bed more often than he brings her to bed, and he doesn't have a love affair with other women, just their words. And then I can't remember which one of them says it, but they say busy has become a trigger word in their marriage, which I feel like is pretty relatable. A lot of times we use being busy as an excuse for not, you know, putting in the effort to do certain things or whatever it is. And I feel like that could apply to more than just marriage, but for a lot of our quote-unquote priorities, or even like passions that we say are passions but we're always too busy for. Another one is words don't come with gift receipts, you can't take them back. And that's one of the lines I thought were a bit dramatic. They still had like an effect, but the husband says, my work makes me feel young but my wife makes me feel old, which I'm sure people out there can relate to, but I just was like, okay dude. And then another line was, most people can see the writing on the wall even if they can't necessarily read it, which I thought was a little, I don't know, like it sounds like a better line, but it doesn't actually mean anything. But I just thought that was interesting in general, that I was picking out like these lines in Alice Feeney's writing that just made me think about the lines themselves, you know? It kind of took me out of the story, I would say in a good way, and made me actually think about these sentences that she's writing and how she's using those kind of one-liners to really describe their marriage and for it to be and become relatable to someone like me. So overall I enjoyed that, and I don't necessarily remember that in Alice Feeney's other book that I read, but that might be the case with all of her books. And then the other comparison I want to make with this book is, so far it's reading a lot to me like Gone Girl. That book also, without spoiling anything of course, that book follows this husband and wife, Nick and Amy, who in the present day also had like marriage problems or whatever, and the wife goes missing. That doesn't happen in this book, but marriage problems. And then we also get past point of views from Amy as she's writing in like her journal from the early days in their relationship. So we get like both timelines, back when it was good from the wife's perspective, and then present day of their marriage now. And we're getting the same thing in this book, where we're getting the present day where they're on this retreat trying to fix things with each other, and then we are also getting past snippets from the wife as she's basically writing letters to the husband on every anniversary in the early years. So far I'm liking it. I'm intrigued to see where else it goes. It's reading really quickly, and I'm hoping that there are some good twists ahead, so I will let you know when I get further, and if this trend, if my interest in the book continues in the same direction. Hi guys, quick clip on my phone because it is after work and I was scrolling through Instagram quick and I saw my friend Gwen post her, I think it was like her October hopeful TBR, and on that she had White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson, and that reminded me that that book is out and I don't have a copy yet, which is a travesty. So I'm going to rectify that. I swung over to Barnes & Noble real quick, and I'm gonna go ahead and hope that they have a copy in stock that I can pick up, and then I wanna read that this month. Procured the goods because it's a bookstore and I have no self-control. Of course, I did not walk out with only one thing, but the most important thing that I walked out with is, of course, White Smoke. I got it. The cover is beautiful as expected, and I'm just so excited for this book. In case you're not familiar with this, I guess I didn't explain, this is a YA horror book, I think. Tiffany D. Jackson writes young adult books in a variety of genres, so I fully trust that this is going to be excellent. It looks like it's about a girl who moves to this new house and might be haunted. I don't really want or need to know much else, but I'm super excited to read this book, and hopefully we'll get to it this month. And when I was in Barnes & Noble, I also saw a couple of interesting sections that intrigued me. One was a bargain book section within young adult, and there were actually some really good titles on there. I was interested in multiple of them, but I limited myself to only buying one. So I went ahead and picked up Blackout, which is actually a collection of short stories, which is not a format of book I typically read, but this one is very interesting to me because I love many of the authors in here. So Tiffany D. Jackson is actually also in this book, as well as Nick Stone and Angie Thomas, and a couple others that I have not read from before, but I'm very excited to give this book a try and to see what I think of the short stories. And it was only $8, which is cheaper than Amazon. I did check. So I thought it was worth picking up for that price for sure. And then the last section that I was intrigued by was a blind date with a book section, which I've seen before, is not something that I usually am super interested in because I'm always nervous that it's going to be a book I've already read or have heard of. And obviously I don't want to buy a book that I already own or have read. But this one in particular struck me because it says it's rare up in the top corner, if you can read that. It's a mystery thriller, and it says exposing a sexual predator makes her a target, but she is determined to find the truth. I don't think I've read this book before. I have no idea what it is, but it sounded interesting enough to me to go ahead and give it a try. So let's go ahead and just open this in the car. Why not? I'll flip you around and open it, and we can find out together what book I just bought. All right, we're gonna open her up. It's a little difficult to do with one hand, but we're gonna make it work. The Stranger Behind You by Carol Goodman. I have not heard this before. So we will see when I get to this and what I think. But that is all for my book haul. I'm pretty pleased with everything that I got. So I'm gonna go ahead and head home now and continue this vlog when I have an actual reading update. All right, guys, update time. I have actually finished Rock, Paper, Scissors, and I have to say, I'm pleasantly surprised by this book. I thought it was a solid thriller. I don't think it's any secret that I really don't like domestic thrillers where like husbands and wives are cheating on each other and there's just this whole bunch of domestic drama. I usually find it all very unrealistic and over the top and just not that interesting for me. But I will say that something about this book didn't feel that way, even though it is at its heart a domestic thriller. It's about this husband and wife, obviously. I think just the combination of like the setting where this is set, because they're isolated, they're not in like their suburban neighborhood with all their neighbors and all of that type of domestic drama to get mixed in. It was isolated and it was creepy. It was kind of like, are they in like a haunted church or like what kind of place are they in? I also continued to really enjoy the writing in this and like those witty one-liners or specific like metaphors and things that either made me like laugh or relate to the characters or just think a little bit and be like, oh, that's really true. Let's see, I wrote a couple more down. One funny one was, I can't remember if it was the husband or the wife talking about drinking and making like a mistake, and they said, in alcohol's defense, I've done some pretty stupid things while completely sober, which is just funny. And then another one, I also can't remember which character said this, but they said being shy and being unfriendly are not the same thing. Unfortunately, most people can't tell the difference, which is something that I feel so hard as a shy person, but as a really like nice, open-minded person, I often just don't like doing like small talk with people, especially at work. If I'm not really spoken to, I usually don't speak to other people, which I definitely think comes off as rude sometimes, but it's truly just me being shy and just wanting to like stay in my shell. But that's not because I'm judging like other conversations that are going on or any other people or anything. It's just because I'm in my own head. So I thought that was relatable, and I just really enjoyed that there were several moments like that within this book. So that's cool, and something that will definitely make me continue to pick up Alice Feeney books in the future. I will say that like the main twist in this book I did guess. I feel like it's fairly obvious where the book is going, but it was a good thriller in that there were multiple twists, you know, so I didn't guess everything. I didn't know everything that was going to happen, and I definitely prefer that in mysteries and thrillers. I like for there to be multiple twists and turns, especially along the way, so that even if you can predict one piece of it, you can't predict the whole thing. So I'm gonna give this 4 stars. I really do just think it was solid. It wasn't like so mind-blowing in a way that it's like a thriller that I'm gonna say everyone has to read. I don't think that, but I do think if it's been on your radar and you've been seeing good reviews, I would agree with those good reviews and say that it's at least worth a read. So glad to have a 4-star book out of the way to start the video. I obviously have 2 books left to read. I'm not sure which one to pick up next. I feel like I've seen really great reviews for 56 Days and I've seen very mixed reviews for Survive the Night. So maybe I want to go Survive the Night next in case I hate it, and then I can have hopefully a good one to end on. I don't know. I will update you though, of course, once I get into one of them and once I start having thoughts. Otherwise, right now I'm actually going to get into wrapping up some books and sending them off. So recently I have kind of decided, as I'm doing these book of the month vlogs, I'm obviously collecting more and more book of the month books, but I'm not loving all of them, and I actually really don't like the way book of the month books look. I personally feel like the book of the month logo on the front and on the spine don't look nice. I feel like they interrupt the cover, and I would prefer books without them, to be honest. So I want to start unhauling for sure the ones that I don't enjoy, and eventually I'll probably get into replacing the ones that are actually favorites but that I want different covers for. So all that to say that on my Bookstagram I started doing like flash giveaways for a couple of the books that I haven't really enjoyed and then I want to pass on to somebody else, somebody who doesn't mind book of the month copies, of course. So I did the first batch, so I have those addresses, so I'm gonna go ahead and package up the books and get those sent out. But if you're interested in the future for you know, winning copies of my old book of the month books, and I'm also probably gonna keep doing this with other books that I want unhauled, definitely follow my Bookstagram and just keep an eye on my stories because that's where I'll be doing them. So that's the plan. I don't know, was that interesting to know? Not sure, but that's the next footage you're gonna see, and then I will be back probably after that with a reading update. Hey guys, it has been a few days again. I actually didn't even tell you when I was starting the next book, but I have already gone ahead and finished it. I read Survive the Night by Riley Sager, and before I get into my thoughts, let me just reiterate that this is one of the most polarizing books I have ever seen. And if you hear my baby making noises out there, he's like talking and giggling to himself. I have eyes on him, but I'm leaving him alone for a second to film this. But anyway, after finishing this book, I went ahead and looked at a lot more reviews since I couldn't be spoiled for it anymore. And I watched some reviews on YouTube and some live shows for book clubs that read this, and wow, it's just so surprising. Riley Sager is obviously a super beloved author, and so there are a ton of people who are reading this and are loving it and are saying it's right on par with the rest of his books. And then there are other people who also love Riley Sager who are reading this book and hating it with every fiber of their being. So I just find that really interesting that there's that kind of polar opposite effect happening within a community that loves this author so much. So let's get into what I thought of it. I fall into one of those two camps. I did not like this book. I am gonna give it 2 stars. And like many other readers, I love Riley Sager. I've loved all of his previous books. I've given all of them 4 or 5 stars. So this is definitely an outlier. And I have some pretty specific thoughts on it. So let me reference my review here. To start, I wasn't immediately captured by this book, which is kind of surprising given the premise. I feel like it is an intriguing premise, and it
Seems like it should have, you know, an attention-grabbing beginning and fast start, but something about it just didn't do that. I didn't feel connected to this character at all. I don't think we got to know her as a person outside of this scenario and outside of what she's going through. And then the other thing that happened really early on in this book is I completely 100% guessed the big reveal and the big twist of this book. They both happen. And it's not just like they ran through my mind as a possibility, like many things go through your mind when you read a thriller. I like told my husband, I know what's gonna happen at the end of this book. I knew who the bad person was, and I knew what the twist would be, because Riley Sager always has a big, you know, twist in his books, which I love, but I thought it was very obvious. And I don't consider myself a big plot guesser in thrillers or twist guesser or anything. Although I do read a lot of thrillers, I don't go in with the primary intent of guessing the ending. I don't think that's fun. I think it ruins the book for me. And so that's also a big negative for this one, is that I knew without a doubt what the ending, twist, and reveal were going to be. And then another thing is this main character has this like condition or this thing where she sees movies in her mind. She's a really big movie buff. She loves movies. And then her mind, I guess, started doing this thing where when she's in her real world, in real life, her mind will like overlay what she's seeing with some movie version, and it makes her so she's not actually seeing reality. And apparently it can like replace people, it can replace locations, it can make it so she can't trust her memories because she was actually like watching this movie in her mind instead of living her real life. Which you might hear and think, hey, that sounds interesting. I've never read that in a book before, which I'll agree with. That's true, it's unique. But for me, it gave me the same annoyance that memory loss tropes in thrillers do. And by that I mean it just feels like a very convenient way for the main character to forget things or to not know what's going on or to behave not in a way a normal person would behave because they have this convenient condition. All of those things together just made this not enjoyable for me. There were some gaslighty elements of this book, which I don't think bugged me because I'm okay with that being discussed in a book, which it very much was in here. It was called out as gaslighting, and I think that's accurate. So that didn't bother me like it bothers some people, but it definitely wasn't a pro. And I'll agree with a lot of people who are just saying this is unrealistic, the fact that our main character is getting into a car with a potential serial killer. In general, I'm someone who can suspend my disbelief a bit for thrillers. I like thrillers that are dramatic, you know, and fast-paced, and I'm okay with characters who wouldn't do the exact same things that I would do, but this was just over the top. I mean, I think every single person reading this book is like, yeah, I would never do that. Even the people who liked this book, I think they would agree that they would never be in the same situation. But that's it. So a bit of a rant review. I did give it 2 stars instead of 1 star, so I don't think it's like the worst book to ever exist. I just think it was nowhere near the quality of Riley Sager's other books. It wasn't surprising, it was surprisingly unthrilling, and it was a big disappointment. So I'm definitely bummed about that, but if you're considering whether or not to pick this one up, I would say skip it and to pick up really any of his other books. If you're curious of my opinions or rankings of his other books, I have read all 4 of his previous books, and my 2 favorites that are kind of tied for the top, the 2 that I've given 5 stars are Home Before Dark and The Last Time I Lied. So those are definitely my recommendations. This one is not, but let's go ahead and move right along to the last book for this video, 56 Days. I actually got this one on audiobook. Hopefully I will be back relatively soon with an update and let you know my thoughts once I get into it. Hi, it's been a long time, like 6 weeks, as evidenced by the Christmas behind me. It is not October anymore, it is November, which I know to some of you is still very early to decorate for Christmas, but my family always does it right after Halloween. So Christmas is set up, and I have finished the last book for this video. I actually finished it
several weeks ago. Life just got very, very busy and crazy in October, so I didn't get a chance to update this video or edit it or edit any videos. So I've been on a bit of a hiatus. Sorry about that. Let's go ahead and talk about 56 Days because I have finished it. I actually finished it on October 10th. Today is November 8th. So my thoughts are not super fresh in my mind, but overall I give it 3 stars, and I'm actually gonna go ahead and read my Goodreads review for this video because I did write this review like right after finishing it, and I think it actually does a pretty good job of summing up my thoughts on this book. So I said that I wish I loved this as much as I'm seeing other people love it. I was just hoping it would be more of a thriller, like trapped in lockdown with someone who is an immediate threat and not being able to go to the store to get help because it's closed, etc. But it was much more of a mystery that, to be honest, could have happened at any time, which is fine. I was just excited for the COVID spin on it. I did like the moments that included COVID references. Obviously, this could be extremely triggering to some readers, but I found it reassuring. Reading thoughts in a book, like being nervous about how close you're standing to people in a grocery store, whether you need to wipe down groceries after buying them, having an internal crisis every time you almost shake someone's hand, etc. I found those moments relatable, but unfortunately nothing else about this book really stuck out to me. So that's the basics of my thoughts. Again, the premise of this thriller is 2 people meet right at the beginning of the pandemic, and they are trying to pursue a relationship with each other, and they decide to quarantine together in order to continue progressing their relationship because they don't know obviously how long quarantine is going to last and when the next time they would see each other otherwise would be. So half of the book is from that timeline where they're meeting and getting to know each other, and then the other half is from like 35 days into lockdown or something like that. Once they've been obviously together for a few weeks, somebody is dead in the apartment building and we're finding out what really happened. Like I said, it was just pretty slow, and a lot of it did seem like it could have happened at any time. Like police officers were still at the crime scene, other neighbors were still talking to each other. There was a lot more human interaction than I was expecting for a book about COVID-19. And I understand people still went to like grocery stores and a lot of people still had to go to work and interact with coworkers, but I just thought for the premise of this book, it would make sense for it to be way more isolated. And so that's what I was expecting and hoping for, and I think that would have helped the thriller aspect feel more thrilling. So that's 56 Days. With that, I have finished this video, and I ended up, of course, with a 2-star, a 3-star, and a 4-star book. So I'm pretty happy with that. That's pretty par for the course, honestly. Please let me know if you've read any of these 3 thrillers and what you thought of them. I'm honestly still in kind of a thriller mood. Even after October, I read a lot of thriller type books and I'm still feeling them, and I have more that have recently come out that I want to read, so look forward to a potential thriller vlog coming up soon. Other than that, I will be getting back into my regularly scheduled video routine. I don't know if I can promise every single week a video is going to come out just because my life is not conducive to that right now, but I'm still super passionate about reading books, making videos about them, and this hobby in general. It brings me a lot of joy, so I'm gonna continue doing it just at the capacity that works for me and my family and my lifestyle. So I think that is all. I don't have anything else, so thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.